No one can get sick. No one is allowed in my house to get sick. Lexi sneezed tonight.
It's insurance. Income tax has been like 18%, that's what we've been quoted to see. Currently, it's up at like 18, it's crazy.
It's a plan.
That's like a cash resolution. You're not getting it funded.
Correct. I don't disagree with you.
Okay, I'll call this public hearing to order, and I'll read the notice in the paper. It says, according to the East Windsor Town Charter, Section 84D 1A, the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education shall hold a public hearing on Thursday, February 1st, 2018 at 6 o'clock at the Town Hall, 11 Rye Street, Broadbrook, Connecticut. The board encourages comments from the public on the Board of Education and the general government budgets for 2018-2019. And I thought I would start by just asking for public comments, but I think I'm going to change the order of things because there's not a lot of people in the room and you certainly will have time to comment. But I did make a little presentation. I'll hand it out to the, okay, you guys got it. And that might give you a better understanding of what's passed out and also give you some questions or bring some questions to mind. Okay, this is the proposed budget for 18-19. And I'm going to start at the, I'll go last year's budget was $37,704,912. And 2% of that was $754,098. And if you break that down, about 60% is for the school budget, 40% is for the town budget. An increase, and not that I'm advocating an increase of 2%, I just want to give you a perspective. An increase of 2% of the town budget would equal, that's the town budget. Last year, 2% of the entire budget was over $700,000. But 2% of the town budget, that would be about $304,664. And this year, unfortunately, we're working on it. We're trying to get another insurance company, but there's a $235,000 increase in health insurance. So that's what we got to pay for. And then we want to have $200,000 in contingency. And the reason we want that is right now, all the union workers, that's the clerical, the supervisors, the police, the dispatchers, are up for contract renewal July 1st. So right now, we don't have a contract for them for next fiscal year. And past we don't know how much it's going to be, so we don't budget. But if they, let's say, August of next year, one of the unions settles, then we'll have to pay them what they settled for. We don't have it in our budget. So if we put some extra money in the contingency fund, then we could cover that. So those are the kind of two expenses that we kind of have to face. And then I'm going to jump down to the end. And this year I'm presenting a different type of budget. I call it like a menu, because what we're doing tonight is presenting the budget for the town to the Board of Selectmen, and we're soliciting public comment before the Board of Selectmen go into it and craft it. And then it'll go from the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Finance, and they'll have to go through the same process. Last year I presented just a budget that I thought was reasonable, and then it went through the process. So far this year we have gone through, in November, all the departments gave the treasurer and myself their estimated budget. We went through them in the month of December, and we're here now. And rather than really do the budget presentation that's been done before, we're in a different ballgame. And I passed out something called tax stabilization. And because of the way the state is taking money away, that's what that article was about. But like South Windsor's trying to develop a fund that will stabilize the taxation a little bit. Well, we in East Windsor are now, over the next 3 or 4 years, are going to see a strange type of revenue coming into the town. And one example of that is, we'll go back to see that, the building permit. Now, when the casino comes in for a building permit, our ordinance says how much we have to charge them, and it's going to be well over $2 million. They're going to have to give us $2 million. This is for the building permit. But what that's going to entail is having Rand can't do it all. So we have to hire some, maybe I'll go back to the slide. We're saying we have to hire 2 building inspectors part-time. And we'll need to hire a full-time building clerk. When I put these salaries up, for a clerk could very well cost about $50,000 in salary. But if you add in the pension, the health insurance, the FICA, the unemployment, then it would bring a $50,000 worker up to about $88,000. But from that $2 million that comes in, or 2 plus, we could pay this money, just like they do in South Windsor by establishing a fund. So that building money, you have to be particular, the revenue stream from the building fund would go, or building of the casino, would go into a fund, and that fund would pay out this money until the certificate of occupancy is given, and then if there's any money left in that fund, it would go into the general fund. But this would allow you to pay for this that needs to be done without affecting the budget. And another thing we're worried about, although I don't think it's going to take place, if that building permit came to us before the beginning of this year, well, it would be in our general fund now, and we wouldn't have the revenue. It wouldn't affect next year's budget. We'd have to come up with this money ourselves. So if we establish the fund soon, we can, when the money does come, we can put it in that fund and spread it out. So we've got to be creative with our budgets for the next 3 or 4 years. And that's why, if you go to where I end up, I put in all those things. Like another thing I put in was an economic development. I wanted to put that out, because people are talking about it. I don't think we can do it this year. Maybe we can fund part-time, but that's put out there. In other words, like zoning and planning. Again, I don't think we can do it this year, but that's something we have to consider over the next 3 or 4 years. So what I've done is really put out, given a menu, and I said, if you take all the things that are in that budget that you have, that would, for the town, it gives over $17 million budget. It would be a 13.71% increase. But if you do if you take a look at the ones individually, and we will in the Board of Selectmen, and then there's a whole bunch of other ones that can be reduced, like Broadbrook Library, no offense, but we put $20,000 in, you can reduce that. Again, the buildings expenses could be done in an ordinance. CIP, they have a large increase here, and then a big increase I put in was the Warehouse Point Fire District. I put it in the budget, I identified the problem, I wonder to see how long that lasts, but all that things can reduce the budget. If you do all these things, then then you get down to a 1% increase. So there's a lot of, I just gave you the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance amending, and they'll have to decide what's important to them and how they want to craft this budget to end up. So that's what you're looking at now with the budget that we passed out. And that'll be in the books that we give to the Board of Selectmen tonight. So that's it. I'll turn the lights on and begin the public hearing. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Board of Education.
Well, there might be something. You want to present
I
something?
haven't heard anything, so I'm hoping there is something.
Yeah, well, for the town budget, and this is a time that the budgets are going to the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen tonight. And what we crafted is what we knew. The treasurer and I put together our budget, and we couldn't include the Board of Education amounts because we don't know what they are. They're going to present it maybe tonight, I don't know.
Not
Maybe
tonight.
later.
I was gonna get up and say a little something.
Okay.
I did bring the public school strategic plan,
Yep.
which is what is really our goals and our missions over the next 5 years. This is our 5-year plan. The Board of Ed has not seen our budget yet. They'll get that at our next board meeting, I believe is when we're scheduled, or the one after
The
that.
budget workshops are the 15th and 22nd,
15th of February,
and 22nd.
because that's when we start. Okay, sorry, there's so many dates floating out of my head, thank you. So we'll be seeing that then. So at this point, I don't have numbers per se to share with anyone, but I can tell you that I know tonight we're here to listen to what the public would like to be a priority, or what they don't want us to prioritize in our budgets. And so I'm certainly, we're all here to hear that, but you can guide what we will want to do based on what's in the strategic plan. These are the things that our community came up with. There was a large group of people from both the community, the town employees, and the school employees, and parents that came together to put this together. And this is really our guiding document for the work that we need to do with the schools. And obviously the work requires funding.
Okay, somebody else wants to give input. Bob?
Bob Leach, 39 Church Street. I'm not sure how familiar you may be with the industry and the building industry anyway. But you're proposing to hire 2 part-time building inspectors, is that
Yes.
what I hear? Typically for a building of the scale that they're looking to build with a casino, most every town in Connecticut would hire a bonded firm to do that.
A bonding firm?
Yes, for a multitude of reasons. Number one, you don't hire employees, you hire a firm, you contract that out, so that it's not something that the town's liable for. Number two, our building department doesn't have the skills or the expertise or the equipment to even do the job. And to try to hire somebody who does have those skills, you're better off, much better off, as they do it, and this is what's done, is you hire a firm to do that job. I don't understand where you're going with hiring building inspectors. It makes no sense at all. That's not what's done in the industry.
I agree, Bob. This is a very complex building they're gonna build, and I think the town has to have an engineering firm that can check everything from lighting to structure I'm sure the Indian nations will do a good job, but it's incumbent on us to make sure that it indeed is a good job, and
Right,
it has some
and
liability.
that's why you hire the firm and you contract
Absolutely.
with them, and all that should all be negotiated in the contract, what they're liable for and all that. And none of it should be anything that's done by our building department, because like I said, they don't have the expertise, they don't have the equipment, they don't have the skills to do that job.
I hear what you're saying, Bob, and I agree with you. We'll further that research. One thing I would say, though, is what we will do when they come in with their detailed plans, that when they come in for a building permit, they have to give us detailed plans, complete plans. There's I guess it's an international consortium called ICC, something Code Committee, International Code Committee maybe, that we're going to send it to, and they take 30 days to analyze big projects like this. So that's one step we're taking, but I think you're right, and I agree with Andy too, we probably should consider an engineering firm. And that doesn't change the method of paying for it, probably changes the amount considerably.
Well, yeah, it's,
Yeah.
Okay, something that's.
Good point, you make a good point.
So, that being said, what was the $25,000 for professional services earmarked for in building?
And again, I'm not sure, so we'll be going over all this in workshops, and Brand will have to come in and explain what he's thinking, but I think you make a good point.
But Bob, the $25,000 will not open the door for one of these engineering concerns. They're gonna cost a lot of money. They may cost $1 million.
Well, we have the $1 million.
I know, but I'm just saying, it's big bucks.
Yeah.
And there's no way that anybody in our town can cover that. You know, Rand's a heck of a good building inspector, but he isn't gonna sit down and review computer programs that define the structure of the building, or the electrical in the building, or the sound system, you know, and it goes on and on. You need a company with very far-reaching expertise to be able to do that.
And my opinion would be the same as yours and Bob's, to have contracted services, eliminating the call for, what would you call it? Temporary full-time employment, that what do you do when the project is
Well,
over, number one, and all the perks that come along with it.
Yeah.
Union issues as well, you're right.
Pardon me?
Union issues as well, you're right.
Yeah, that as well, yeah.
So the outside firm that we would hire, I kind of agree with that too.
I agree with
You
you.
should hire somebody. We're getting a hell of a lot of money for the permit. We've got to step up to the plate to this. We can't play cheap here, like East Windsor likes to do. So we're just going to bite the bullet, hire someone that's respectable, and I'm sure they'd have to be bonded. Okay, so if anything goes wrong, it's their butts that'll be held to the fire.
Yeah, they're at risk. Now, it takes the risk off of
Right, they would
us.
have to be bonded and, you know, hold us harmless the whole 9 yards. No, I'm really for the same deal, hire an outside engineering firm to
And they'll be better
oversee this.
equipped to meet deadlines that, you know, as the project moves along and so forth, that they'll have the manpower to do that. And they'll be familiar with that. So we should go in that direction.
'Cause I would assume they'd have people over there around the clock.
Yes.
I'm assuming they want to make this a 24/7 project to get caught up with MGM. And they'll probably put their own trailer over there, and they'll have their own people there around the clock, so when something needs to be inspected at 1 o'clock in the morning, they can get it done, you know?
What they'll do, I'm sure, is they will define MIPS, mandatory inspection points, to the company, to the Indian nations and the companies who are doing the construction. So if they have an area where they have to look at it before they can
Continue.
approve it, then they'll have to be there to do that.
Right.
And the company will not, and the builders will not be able to go beyond that point.
Right, so they need people there around the clock, if that's their schedule for building this place.
They have to plan ahead, they'll have to.
That's
know
gonna
when the
cost,
nip's
that's gonna
gonna
cost
occur.
some bucks, so we're gonna have to be
Days in
ready to
advance,
step up to
yeah.
the plate when that time comes.
It's a big activity just for our engineering concern to work with their engineering concern to define the mandatory inspection points and to have them review all the calculations that goes into structures and electrical and, and air conditioning and all that kind of stuff. It is not a simple job.
No, and I'm sure they would keep Rand informed
Yeah, well,
as things go on. Rand will be informed and
Yeah, or make sure everything is coordinated and they're working
Absolutely.
together. Bob?
Two-part question, because this is for the fiscal year 18 and 19 budget. What happens if the casino is not approved until the 19-20 year budget to these funds? How will they carry over? And the second part of that, does anybody have any official news on the status of the lawsuit with the Department of Interior? There was some sort of a news flash I just barely caught today, and how that fits into the picture. I've heard as far as I'm concerned, as soon as we see the money incoming for the demolition permit of the cinema, we're in business. Is that a fair statement? No. Okay.
I'd say, well, when you see, the building permit, when they ask for a building permit, then you can.
The demolition means they clear the land, we get less taxes because the structures are gone. They own it. If they don't build, it's a piece of land that they can market. You can't tie the two together directly, although it shows progress. It's not a guarantee.
And here's the first part of the question, we wouldn't get that building permit money until they pull out a building permit, have
It's a long
detailed
way.
plans. So if it does come 2 years from now or a year from now, it doesn't make any difference. We would spend it the same way. We wouldn't spend it in advance.
But we could negotiate with our engineering firm pending approval of the building permit.
Right.
I would think we'd want to have our engineering firm in place and ready to step out when the Indian nations are ready to step out.
And maybe we can work something out.
But if it was approved in this fiscal year budget, it would automatically carry over based on those
If we put it in a
negotiations?
separate fund, and that's what we have to
Oh,
work on
that's
and
the
do.
key, that's the key.
Yeah, yes.
Yep. Oh, brother.
now we've heard in the past that even though they're going through all the fight and everything for this, that they intended to build while this was all going on. That's what's been said in the past here.
I heard that personally from one of the tribal nations.
Okay, because they're confident that, what the Federal Indian Affairs did, it makes it approved because they didn't give an answer. Okay, there's a yes answer and there's a no answer. If they don't make the answer within so many length of a time, that's supposed to become a yes answer. Okay, so I hope they have a nice fight on their hands, and I hope they win, because I want them here. I want them here.
About a week or so ago, I talked to Dan Capiella, who is a representative of the Indian Nations, MMCT, and he said he was going to be here tonight. I'm not sure he is. I did not follow up on it today and ask him, but he certainly seemed willing to come here once a month or so, once a month, and tell us status on what was going on. When I talked to him, he seemed very confident that the MMCT would win out, the Indian Nations would win out. As Steve was saying, the Bureau of Indian Affairs has an obligation to answer a request as they submitted. I think it's in 45 days. They did not do that, and the approval methodology says if you don't do anything in whatever that time period is, that it's approved. And that time has lapsed. Now, I don't know, the big government's hard to sue. But they're gonna do, they apparently have taken action, they've hired law firms and have taken action to proceed along that line if they have to.
And as I understand it, MGM has entered into this suit to
Oh,
get their
sure.
piece of the pie as
Sure.
well. So it's safe to say that it got political interaction, allegedly from a U.S. senator from Nevada that has influenced somebody along the way somewhere. But will the final judgment be in the hands of a federal judge? Is that?
I don't know. I had a similar conversation with Ms. Capello as well, and this is being held up, I know the 45-day thing, but it's being held up by the Department of Interior.
Right.
And until they say something one way or the other, I think it's just a standstill. I don't think there's any great force to do that. And unless, you know, through the lobbyists from one party or the other, they'll be able to nudge them along. And it's about money. It's all about the money there.
And lobbying.
Yeah.
All politics.
Terrible.
And as Steve said, and politics. Apparently, they thought they had a clear path to approval under the Obama administration. And that was a Democratic administration, and we're deep in Democrat, representatives in our both Senate and House here. President Trump and our congressional delegation do not see eye to eye. That's kind of an understatement. And he could have put out the word that maybe we don't have to hurry on this thing. I don't know. That's supposition, not fact.
Bob?
Yeah. Just to get back on track, this is a budget presentation. So I have some questions on what you had on here for could be reduced, and the first thing that glared out to me was the CIP increase, postpone that. How long would you plan to postpone it? And
I would do it within the next 3 months.
So it's just a 3-month postponement?
No postponement at all. We've got a very healthy fund balance.
Yeah.
You take the things off of that CIP that are not recurrent, and by recurrent, I consider a police car recurrent, but if you go down further in that list, you'll find a lot of things that are, you could do within the next 3 months from the fund balance. So I'm saying to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, take stuff off that CIP list and pay for it now and do it now, and then you take it out of your budget.
I get that, I follow you there. And then my other question was the Warehouse Point Fire District. You say you've noticed the issue and we have it on here, but we still have the issue of they're their own taxing district. So I'm kind of curious on how you would budget for something where they have their own fund.
Yeah.
So how would you do that legally, number one?
Well, you could. We can.
You could.
Yeah, because we've been doing it since 1975.
Right, but since they've decided to tax now and they're funding themselves through taxation.
Well, we would, there's, back up a little bit.
Some type of negotiation, I would imagine.
What I'm proposing is to give them the same amount of money we give Broadbrook. And then all the money that the town gives to the fire departments would be equalized. So all the residents would be paying into the pot for fire. Now, if they want to go tax higher than that, then they could, but that at least equalized.
So that really, it kind of really leaves the town hanging out there. You're hoping that they won't continue to tax at the rate they do, but you have no justification to hold them to it.
No, I'm just trying to equalize it the best I can. The solution would be for them to
I think you'd have to negotiate with them somehow. Otherwise, you're gonna set yourself up for some
we'll form another
liability
committee
there.
to negotiate, but I would just give them the same amount of money we give Broadbrook. That's what I do. Then they're on their own. But at least that way, the whole town would be supporting fire safety and fire services. And they would be contributing the same amount. Right now,
It would even the scale for the taxpayers, but it
Yeah.
wouldn't even the scale for the departments, nor would it even the scale for the residents of Warehouse Point or Broadbrook. Warehouse Point, by continuing to be able to tax, could continue right along. Buy more equipment, expand their department, hire full-time employees, and meanwhile Broadbrook would be, sitting where we are. So it's not an
no,
equitable
it's not,
situation.
it's not the best solution. The best solution is to have one fire department.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
But
But
we
how
don't.
we get to that point, until we get to that point, I think you're kind of setting yourself up for a liability by.
I don't think you are setting yourself up for liability, but I think you're right, there's better solutions. I'm going to see how long that lasts. That probably won't make it through the Board of Finance, Selectmen. If it doesn't, I doubt it gets through the Board of Finance. Yeah.
Another area of the budget, the senior center, you have capital purchases, blank, 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 yeah, it's a 100% increase.
If it's blank, 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 if it was blank, yeah, I don't.
Is there something that came into CIP budget, like new vans or something like that? Or is that just a typo?
But that brings up another thing.
It's on page 6.
We reorganized within the last month, starting January 1st. We moved, we put Melissa Maltese in charge of Parks and Rec, the Senior Center, and Human Services. And to do that, we rearranged a lot of things and changed some salaries. So you'd have to look at all three departments to really compare it to last year.
So basically, what did you do? You combine 3 jobs into one, or 2 into one?
2 into 1. Before we had a director of Human Services and Senior Center, and Melissa was in charge of the Parks and Rec. And so then the person in charge of the Human Services and the Senior Center left, so we had a job opening. And to fill it, we said, well, let's combine all 3 of those areas, departments, and call it Human Services, because, and we think we were able to do it. We were able to save a little money, but we did it not to save money, but to make it more effective as a unit. But I find that page.
But there's no change in the senior center salary full-time account.
No, in fact, what we did, when we made that change, we may hire a couple of part-time people in the senior center. We might add a part-time person, and maybe in Human Services. That would be, and maybe also in Parks and Rec, but we're not sure. Oh, that's the budget. Yeah, good.
Is there any other copies?
Of the budget?
I didn't see any up there.
I think there was a file there.
They were in the middle, so
You want to Xerox them, Bob?
I'm good.
All right, so page 6.
Well, we're talking about the budget here. I'd like to ask Kathy here a question. Because I don't know what it means. So maybe you can enlighten me.
I will try, but I will say this is technically a public hearing where we are supposed to be hearing
Yeah,
public
that's
comment,
true.
not
That's
actually
true.
having a conversation. So if I don't have the information available or off the top of my head, I will,
All right.
I don't want to give you bad information, certainly.
Well, just
so.
give me the best you can, okay? I'm not going to hold you, to it. In the annual report here. Board of Education. Employees. you've got two different classifications here for staff. What is the certified staff? What are those people? Who are they?
Versus what's the other classification that's listed?
It says certified staff and classified staff for a total of 266
The
people.
certified staff is our teaching staff who have been state certified with a degree that is for teaching at some level or another.
Okay, so that's all teaching.
Yes.
That's teachers only.
Well, teachers and teaching staff. I won't say they all have a specific teacher position, because I'm not entirely sure if any of our certified staff are used in other ways.
Okay, so we'll say that those are teaching people, teaching positions. What's classified staff?
The classified, correct me if I'm wrong, is the secretarial staff, paraprofessionals, custodial staff, yes.
So that's the custodians and
Secretaries, all the administrative staff,
Well,
all the other
secretaries in the
people. All the other
offices,
people.
well,
paras, the
paraprofessionals.
paraprofessionals.
Would principal be administrative? They're,
They're not in either of those.
oh, okay.
Or are they?
Or sweepers. Staff.
Yes, I mean administrative support, if you will. You know, like the secretarial staff is administrative in my mind. We call everybody in my company admins who does that, so.
So everybody that works for the East Windsor school system is a total of 266 people, according to this, right? Employees, it says here.
I haven't even looked at that, so I don't want to quote that exactly. I don't know how it's organized. I didn't put it together myself.
I know about it. I wouldn't want to speak to it without.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that that's the exact number of people that we had working at the time that was done, because I'm not entirely sure how it was. I haven't even looked at it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Dale Nelson, 51 Amelia Road. Salary full-time under selectmen has gone up 51.59%. Can you explain that?
I sure can.
Good.
When we, on that budget up there that I showed you, we had a economic development professional, and we were going to pay him $90,000 a year, and we were going to adding in his health insurance and pension and that, it was bringing it up to $133,000. And we didn't know where to put that person, so we put him into the selectmen. So he'll come right out of that probably when we postpone it. Yeah.
Bill Lewis, Melrose Road. It's hard to comment on a budget that we don't have here tonight from the Board of Education. According to this public notice, we should have had a budget here for them to comment.
That's not the way we've done it all along.
That's the way it reads right here on this call that I'm reading.
No.
That's why I came here.
No.
But
This is what,
I'd like to comment on the Board of Education anyway.
Okay. Dave, let's
We keep reducing the number of students we have every year. We used to have 1,900 students in town. Now we got almost less than 1,000. I think this year will probably be under 1,000.
No, I think it's
1,026 last year, according to the report I read, the town report.
all right.
And so I think this year, I think they're going down again, a few more, so it's probably around 1,000. So that's about a 900 decrease. So I'd like to see the Board of Education come in with a budget that's reasonable, so it's not an increase in the taxes in the town. I think we deserve a zero increase in the Board of Education. I don't think every year we keep going up. The seniors in this town keep getting more and more taxes, and they can't afford that. Every year they increase the taxes on the seniors, on everybody. And it's time that we settled down, came in with a budget that's zero increase. I like the Board of Education budget, 1.1%. By the time you're done with it, you're probably down around zero. I hope the Board of Education does the same thing.
Wow.
Unlike Mr. Lewis, I have kids in school, and I want to make sure that they receive a very good education.
But wait a minute.
We all have to
No,
understand
I
that.
want to call time out here.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I do not want conversations between people.
Right, so I'm addressing you.
Thank you.
So, like I said, I want to see my kids receive a very good education. I would like to have them go to school in this town and receive that. I think what's probably misunderstood by many is there's fixed costs that will continue to go up regardless of how many students we have. You still have to offer X amount of classes. You still have to offer, actually, you still have to follow all the state mandates, which keep being piled onto our school system every year. These are all things that people need to consider when you're looking at a budget. And I think when the Board of Ed presents their budget, we'll probably see some of that in there. And you'll probably be better educated in understanding what that budget's about.
Yeah, Dale.
Health insurance alone is a big factor in both budgets. That hasn't gone down, that never goes down. It's 18% this year. God bless if you can negotiate that down a little bit, but that's a fact.
The problem is our claims experience is quite high, and that puts us in a very high bracket for renewing our insurance.
We paid out,
Town-wide,
Cigna's paid
both
out
sides.
more in claims than we paid them in premium, so they're
Right.
not really inclined.
That doesn't make us very attractive
No.
to insurance carriers. And it does not incite them to want to lower our insurance increase.
We're trying to shop around, find another carrier.
How does that
As we do
compare
every
to-
year.
Excuse me, how does that compare to surrounding towns, and what their claim experience is?
You know, I haven't spoken to any of the other boards of ed, and I don't know whether they do it across, because we use the same carrier so that we can get some economy of scale there. And I don't know if other towns do it that way. Numbers I've seen it work in terms of our personal insurance for my industry
Board of Ed
is
look at
around the
that?
same thing.
Should the Board of Ed look at that as a potential savings?
Look at,
Well, I don't know about the Board of Ed.
I don't think,
I think
like the
we
Board
look
of
at
Ed
it
and the
as a
town do
town.
it together. We do it together, the town and the board. And I don't know if all towns do it that way, but here we've done it that way.
Is the claim experience higher with the Board of Education than the town combined? Or is it high?
It used to be the other way around. We used to actually, our insurance went up when we joined with the town because the town's claim experience was higher. So at any particular time, I don't know because that's personal information and we're not privy to who the individuals are.
All right, no, I understand.
So-
They give you the summary of what the claims experience is.
And I don't know if they separate it out that way.
I think it'd be helpful to know how we compare to other towns, because what is driving that high claim experience here compared to others, if that is the case?
Okay, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy Billady, 343 Scannick Road. What's driving it is exactly what Kathy was just trying to say. When we combined our plan with the town's plan, we took on any issues that might be happening in the other departments. Things like police department, who very well may have more claims just even from their work history and things like that. That is going to increase our bottom line number. Other towns have larger school districts and they're only taking care of the health of the school department as opposed to the other entities. I understand that, you know, there's workers' comp and so forth that covers other things, but overall, the type of work that's being done is mixed with ours, is going to cause your experience rating to go up. That's just plain and simple. And as far as them splitting it out with a town of this size where you could look and see that there's 10 people and you know 2 had this happen, I think that if they were doing that, they'd be divulging personal information that they should not do. I would think that they would only be reporting it based on the full town because it would be too easy to recognize and pick out who individuals are. I'm just speaking, I haven't looked at it personally, but I do work with benefits and things like that. And you know, she was saying that, but I'm just trying to emphasize it a little more.
Yeah, I'm talking in a summary fashion, you know, how does it compare to other towns?
You'd have to have another town that has a
I've
small
read in
school
the-
district and is merged with their town. So it would have to be very much, say, in the same GERG perhaps, that has very similar things to be able to know if it's an apples to apples match. Because if you have just a town, just a school department in a plan, their experience rating is going to be lower than one that's merged with the town system.
But we don't know which ones they are.
No, I don't.
And other towns may not be, maybe if we're working with a fully insured plan, they may be working with a plan that's fully funded, so it's gonna drive the differences in their costs and their premiums, and then just basically their overall design of the plan and what benefits that they have and don't have is going to make a difference in how that's done. Now, we've done very well with trying to get people into a higher deductible plan, and made some very good improvements with that will bring overall savings, but it's always in balance with our experience rating. So it's
Being such a high expense for the town and departments, we should really do a little more due diligence there to
Well,
understand.
we do, in fact,
They do.
we can have our insurance carrier come in and give you, he's happy to give you a full talk, they give breakdowns by areas, the school departments, and even areas in the school department, and the various plans we have, PPO and health savings plans, and there is a variance of a percent or 2 or 3 between. He breaks the town down into maybe 6 categories, and it's very common, and we'll have them come
I
in.
will say that we've worked diligently to
Yeah.
reduce that cost through our contracts with all of our bargaining units, and we have everyone on a high deductible plan now.
Which is definitely a plus for the town, for being a high amount of employees that the Board of Education has. That's an absolute plus.
Okay, Cindy.
Savings.
Cindy Herms, 12 Pownell and Fort Broadbrook. I just want to say one of the things that's important to our town is that we have a school district that is continuing to be good and growing. It makes our town more attractive, it builds people, it builds the tax base to have a good school system. The key part of the school system is your employees, it's your teachers, it's who you employ. You have to have teachers that you want to have stay. You want to maintain, you want to be competitive with other towns. You want to have quality teachers. You can't be continually reducing the amount of teachers that you have. With the budgets that we've been having, with only a 2% increase, and with salaries increasing and health insurance increasing much more than that, we've only been reducing the size of the workforce or the teachers, and I don't know the numbers, but to say that you're going to have a 0 increase is saying you're going to have less teachers, less qualified teachers, less, what are you saying when you're saying you want a 0 increase?
So
you need to remain competitive. We have contracts with the teachers unions, and they do have raises. They're meager. They're not huge, incredible raises, but we need to have a good school system in order to go forward. And you don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish.
I agree with you because I went to the school system. But you said that, we can't keep reducing teachers. How many have you been reducing over the past 4 years?
I just know that being on the Board of Finance, I don't know the details of how the school, all the details on how the school has had to deal with the reductions we have imposed on them. But it's been very big. I could let someone else explain it, but I could just imagine that with a 2% or less increase to the Board of Education, when you have more than a 2% increase in salaries and a much more than 2% increase in health insurances, you're going to have reductions in programs. It just doesn't, the math doesn't work out with the other one.
Wow.
I'm trying to be proactive and positive, and generally, in years past, I've always said that I thought that by surrounding towns in the state of Connecticut, 2/3 of the budget should be taken up by the board head, and I'm sure they can justify such a thing. The thing that concerns me, and I really second his concern, Bill Lose's concern, is that facetiously, maybe a decade or two ago, I appointed myself Director of Communications. I'm looking at this legal notice now, and I'm going to tell you, it specifically says the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education shall hold this budget hearing. The boards encourage comments from the public on the Board of Education and general government budgets. I'm going to suggest that you recall this meeting and have people prepared from the Board of Education.
No, I don't know if I wrote it, but my office wrote it. And that says on the budgets, and really what it meant was on the budgets that we're going to go into and produce. So it doesn't mean this year's budget, it means last year's budget, just budgets.
It means in general,
It means
budgets
in
in general. What do
budget
you,
for the,
what is it that you wanna
This is
see
the
or
very
not
beginning of
see?
the process.
Yeah,
And we're gonna
Okay.
move forward
that's why it's
from
put in
here.
the front of the process.
There are
So-
more hearings that people can come to and comment. We're gonna be working on the workshops. People are welcome to come to the workshops. And this is like the beginning of the process. Yeah, there's a whole calendar of dates of when budget workshops are, when the public hearings are. This is just, it's done this way every year. This is the
By
beginning
charter,
of the
we're not
process.
allowed to deliberate on the budget at all until we've heard this public comment. So when people tell us what it is they want to see or not see, as Mr. Lowe said, he wants to see a 0%. That's the kind, we're looking for input. I don't know that we'll be able to accommodate him, but, we're looking for both sides. Cindy asked for something else, Bob asked for something else. So those are the kinds of comments we're looking for, so we understand what the public wants to see in our budget, so that as we put it together, we can try to satisfy what it is that the community wants and needs for their town schools. That's our concern.
Fair enough. And in that respect, I'd like to see an increase justified that gives the students the education they need, gives the teachers and the administration the income and the perks that they need. And when we see that in writing, I'll
I think in this budget schedule, there's a public hearing before the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education present it to the Board of Finance. And that would be the time that we really see the Board of, both our budgets in
Yeah, we will
detail.
both of us present our budgets to the Board of Finance on the same evening, so. And certainly between now and then, we will both have many workshops that are open to the public, so that you can come and hear the nitty-gritty of every number that's in there if you so choose.
Right. So philosophically, I've said for a long time, there's two ways to balance the budget. Cut costs, get rid of teachers, janitors, etc., or increase revenues through economic development and taking care of businesses that are already there, bringing in new. And in that respect, I definitely, absolutely am behind 110%, $133,000 increase that looks as if it's going to the first selectman, but it's going to an economic development professional. And I will help, if elected tonight or appointed tonight to the Economic Development Commission, to see that that be done judiciously.
Keith.
Keith Aguilar. I think one of the issues with arguing in sort of the abstract is that folks that are favoring one area, particularly say schools, are going to argue spend the money we need for schools, and then other folks that are interested in arguing and reducing taxes or keeping taxes flat argue that, and it's just all in the abstract. What I'm going to be looking for is to making sure that all the expenditures are appropriate. Because I think that the waste that we're all concerned about, if there is waste, is when money is spent on things, either too much money is spent on an item, and it could be a lesser expense, or things are purchased inappropriately. But I don't think anyone would argue that education is not a primary, maybe top one or top two issue in town for most everybody, and taxes is as well. It's certainly up there in top one and top two. But I think we need to look at the expenditures as a town rather than focusing on our individual objectives as a priority, particularly in the abstract, because I think it just causes people to dig in deep on their position, and then they kind of become blind to the details, because they're just only interested in an outcome that's based on their position. And so anyway, I advise everybody to look carefully at the expenditures and to see what we're spending too much on and what we don't need, and then try to go after those first. And again, rather than just arguing and debating in the abstract, which I don't think is all that useful.
Paul?
Okay, before we run out of time, I have an obligation to say something about the Broadbrook Library. Since East Windsor does not have a town library, and that's an important item, we rely, as a town, on private entities to supply those services. There are 2 libraries in town, and they are both private organizations. One is funded by the town, the other one currently is not, which is incorrect, in my opinion. It's not the amounts. The dollar amounts are not the big issue. The issue is, one's being ignored entirely but provides the same type of services as the other, and the other gets a substantial amount of money. Inappropriate, in my opinion, as a taxpayer, it's unacceptable. Many people go to the Broadbrook Library to use its services. And many of them walk there. They won't go to Warehouse Point, because they don't even have a car. They're not going anywhere. They go there because they can get the services, the library services they want. And they are taxpayers. But the town's not contributing to that, and I think that's a big mistake. Now, as the president of the Broadbrook Library Association, I'd like to see my budget request go to the public and decide whether or not that's an appropriate amount of money, as opposed to having it all butchered and turned into almost nothing, if not nothing. If it turns out to be nothing this year, I'm going to be a very unhappy camper, because that to me is a travesty. So, in any case, we need to support the people. We don't need to sit in groups, selectmen, board of finance, and make decisions, say, well, this isn't important enough, throw it away. That's not acceptable, because that means you're throwing away the desires and the needs of a group of taxpayers. And I don't see why the town would do that to anybody. So, that's the end of my statement today. Thank you.
Further?
I have one more comment on the Board of Education budget. There are many districts in the state of Connecticut that have 4 or 5 towns in one district, with one superintendent of schools. We got a superintendent of schools here, and she got an assistant superintendent of schools, and that budget is around $500,000. I think that the town should look into, or Board of Education look into, combining our superintendent, like Windsor Locks, Suffield, Ellington, or some other superintendents, and form one superintendent for all these schools. Hartford has one superintendent for, I don't know how many schools they got, but they got more than 3. And I think we can reduce our budget by going with a district.
There are lots of places that do that, though. I think we will find down the road someplace that the individual towns here in Connecticut will be, it'll be necessary for survival for them to regionalize. A lot of places have done that. And I'm not sure that today's the day, but I'll bet you sometime in the near future, we will look at that as a community, a Connecticut community, and decide that East Windsor should be combined with Windsor Locks and Ellington and South Windsor, or whatever. When I went to high school a long time ago, Ellsworth High School in South Windsor was our high school. It was an East Windsor, South Windsor high school. And the number of students between the 2 school systems at that point in time was nearly equal. And that's a hell of a long time ago, back in 1945, to 1949. But it worked. Not only that, but it was a good experience. I had gone to elementary school with a bunch of kids that I liked a lot for 8 years. When I went to Ellsworth High School, I had a whole bunch of new opportunities to meet kids I never would have met, and it was great. So, I don't know what all that means, except for the fact that I do believe with declining population in the state of Connecticut, with declining school enrollment in public schools, for lots of reasons. Magnet schools are hurting, declining population is hurting, that we will find it necessary to do something which is out of the box and not just have our own individual school system. I really believe that's going to happen.
Well, the governor already spoke about that. He said we should do, like you say, combine different jobs. And I say like the IT, like for the town IT, that's the superintendent, schools IT over there. There, I know other secretaries and stuff like that. We should be kind of combining with the town, not just have a separate Board of Education that has all these separate items that the town duplicates. That's duplicated. You know, human resources is another one. We could have one human resources director for both the school and the town, which would reduce the cost.
I concur with Andy. I see that as how the state is moving with, you know, fewer students. Hartford's going to close 4 schools, I think, within the news this week. And it's just, it is what it is, that, you know, that it's continuing to decline. And that there'll have to be something like that to combine with nearby or whatever. But, you know, looking further down the turnpike, that I think before having an address changed to Rye Street, that that students will be going to school from home. They won't go to school. Just like the college students, so many of them are taking courses from home today and being taught that way, that I see with the communications as they're going and so forth, that will happen before I'm gone. I see that as inevitable because of the cost and the efficiency of what they're doing, and it's working in the colleges. I know it's different in elementary school, but I think there'll be a way to do that. I think that will happen.
I think we're already doing that with some of our sports in town here. Hockey teams, football teams. There's 3 or 4 towns that are got together to make one team. We cannot support just one team.
Yeah.
All towns get together and have one sports director or whatever you call them, coach. You don't need 3 of them paying salaries.
I'd like to challenge the Board of Education to start that process, to look and see, begin to look and see what that would hold. Because I really don't think that individual towns will be able to support school systems for a long time. I don't know if it's 20 years away or 10 years away or 5 years away, but I really would like to have the Board of Education start looking at that and talking to other towns around here. Regionalization works. It is not a bad word. Kids get good education, and with our school system, you know, going from 1,500 to 1,000 over the last 3 or 4 years, it's got to be a consideration. It really has to be. At some point in time, we will not have the critical mass. When I worked at Hamilton, one of the problems we had was in the space business was if space programs were down and we had to lay people off, at some point in time, the management of the company would tell us, you must maintain a certain number of people to allow you to have overheads and, you know, and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. Well, it's a little different in the Board of Education or in the public sector, but a lot of that still applies. And I think it should not be out of the realm of consideration to start thinking about that.
I don't think it's ever been out of the realm of consideration. It is something that we have talked about before. It just is not something that we have been able to find a way to bring to the front of the table at this point. There's a lot of things, and I don't want to get into all the details here. That's not really what this meeting's for, but there are a lot of factors to consider. There's a lot of regionalization that does work, and there's regionalization that doesn't work. You have different towns with different priorities and different focuses, and that is not always a very smooth thing for a regionalized school district. You have a town that passes a budget, a town that doesn't pass a budget. How do you share in the costs when one town doesn't pass a budget?
But
There's
that's
a
all
lot, there's a
compromise,
lot
isn't
to
it?
consider, right?
That's
and
all
it's-
compromised. You could create certainly an educational system that would best match 2 or 3 towns. It wouldn't be perfect for either one of them, any one of them, but it
But
could.
that requires that everyone compromise.
You're right.
And
Everybody
that's not
compromise.
always something that people want to do.
Yeah,
It's
and
not,
that-
it's not a
compromise is-
simple thing for sure. And it's not,
Compromise is not easy.
no, and it's, and again, I'm going to say, it's not something that we haven't talked about before. We have.
Okay, I think we ought to call this public hearing to an end. Time has run out.
Need a 5-minute recess.
So we will take a 5-minute recess and then we'll start our board of selectmen meeting. Thank you all.